You ready for another stream of consciousness video here? Because that's what's about to happen. I won't be shooting ropes for any of these women, I'll tell you that much. And apologies to Megan, Miss Murphy. I haven't watched her video yet, just as the recording of this. And the image that you're looking at is from the Pornhub Awards. And no offense to this woman, but I'm going to use her as an example of not only commodification, but also of objectification and devaluation. Because the internet has afforded to the intelligent a means of explicit imagery and video with this simple expression and combination of a few words into Google, and it's absolutely free. So it just goes to show that intelligent people don't need money. They don't need money, right? Because they're resourceful and they use other people's money, right? They build relationships. you know, I was thinking about this, and I'm disappointed. I'm not saying that I was naive, because if it exists, there's porn of it, there's pornography of it. That's just the nature of human behavior, right? But there's plenty of examples of these women being disposable. And what I really wanted to say was that pornography, at the scale for which it has evolved to, and the industry for which it has become, along with services such as TikTok, are absolutely evil. They're evil. They're exploitive, right? There's plenty of documentaries out there. There's movies, right? I don't need to go on a tirade of reviews about these movies and about how they destroy people's lives, and we just allow it because it's like, well, if we don't do it, then someone worse will do it, and they'll treat the women even worse than we already do, or they'll treat the men even worse than we already do. And that's not just depressing, it's disappointing. And for a lot of these women that end up on OnlyFans, I'm thinking about, how would have this woman been? How would have she been if this option wasn't available to her and she wasn't seeking instant gratification? Would she have become a mother? Would she have sought higher education or another means of fulfillment? Because like this differentiation and this rebellion of who and what we are and where we come from, like the what's the quote is that the devil's laughter can be heard after copulation, because sex is the easiest thing in the world. It is, and I'm not going to fight anybody over it, right? I'll take from Andrew Huberman here. in saying that, or what's it? Not to misquote him. I'm gonna just say it in other words. Is that mature males, mature and sexually experienced men, don't fight each other. I remember in my youth, my younger years, where I had the fantasy of, okay, having sex, or having a porn star girlfriend in the era in which the proliferation of pornography on the internet hadn't quite happened yet. The technology had not quite caught up with the media, right? And you still had to go to the corner store in order to get a porno rag, right? Or you had to go to a sex shop to get porn on video. And that was, it was something um, desirable because of their status symbol, and their experience with their sexuality. But after porn ends, you know, it's just like any other kind of stardom. You just go back to being a normal person, except the difference is that your imagery to some of these people that's desirable is being an object of instant gratification, nothing more, nothing less, just a vessel for people's spank banks. And quite frankly, to me, I don't find that fulfilling. It all of these people are interchangeable. They're interchangeable. They're just the flavor of the moment. Right? You have no real direct relationship with them. They just sell the illusion of a relationship. And it's even more depressing and more um what am I trying to say here? More difficult to legitimize these decisions with the adaptation and the adoption of artificial intelligence tools. And this article, of course, was in Wired, right? Talking about how they were using contractors, being paid, dimes on the dollar, so to speak, right? Um, to chat with the Johns, right, or the Tricks, and you're not actually speaking with the woman that is masturbating or is being flagellated with multiple phalluses or penises, if not a grotesque, um, mentally ill person with multiple plastic surgeries trying to convince everything and everyone, including themselves, of who they are and what they're not. You know, am I a Christian? To a lot of people, I'm not from the outside. To a lot of people, I'm not. To some people, I'm just a jailhouse preacher. A hypocrite with a good set of genes, and that's problematic in itself, right? Because there's no one more judgmental of religious people than other religious people, because what they really want is control over someone else, and it's not what's said; it's what's left out. And Jesus um, by some rumors, was married to Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene was a whore, or in contemporary terminology, a sex worker. I'll let that sink in for a second with that dramatic pause. Jesus, the savior of Christianity, acknowledged by both Judaism and by Islam as a prophet. Hung out with the poor, the destitute, the diseased, the disabled, and brought light and clarity and purified them of their diseases. Gave food to the hungry, right? Healed the sick, gave clothes to the unclothed, and shelter to those that didn't have it. That's kind of the idea, right? Is to give them a way out of slavery, because slavery and poverty go hand in hand. That's the devil's trick, if I'm going to speak in religious terms. That's the evil, right? And the devil works through consent. And all of these people, they get involved with this, and they're consenting to it. They sign these contracts, or they just scroll through the contract and then click on a box with one of those Google Square things, I'm not a robot, the human check, and they just go on with their merry way. But in a lot of cases, because of the popularity and because of the propaganda, that it's the nth degree of sex positivity. Oh yeah, you can go out there, you can be who you want, you can have sex with whomever you want, and there's no consequences to it. But I tell you, there are real consequences, and they're permanent. This is not just some sexually transmitted infection. And I say that with foreknowledge of knowing how strict, well, at least the perception is, and the communication from the public relations side of pornography, at least within the production studios, that these people are tested on a regular basis. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, this doesn't seem like it's desirable. There's far more sustainable ways to achieve either notoriety, infamy, or legendary status within culture itself. And none of them have anything to do with having as many sexual partners as possible within 24 hours. Absolutely none. And then the nerve of some of these people to say that they're sex therapists by doing this. But the people that they choose to have sex with are a reflection of themselves. And that's part of the traditional value system that existed before. And as I knock my phone, some of the message from the chains of previous North American and European tradition was to stop promiscuity because, well, there's consequences. And that's the real elephant in the room, is that it doesn't matter what your body type is, how big your boobs are, pussy looks like, how big your dick is, or how fat you are, and whether or not you have cellulite. What matters is who you're having sex with. Again, I'm just disappointed. I'm really disappointed, because and I know there's I'm not the only one that has this observation or this opinion, and it's not like pornography is something new to humanity. And I was incarcerated, I was in jail, right? And there's nothing I wanted more than physical contact with a woman. Nothing I wanted more, right? And then as soon as I got out of jail, I go to a dating app, I start swiping and so on and so forth, like the rest of us. And I find this single mother that's willing to drive a long distance, but then when it comes down to it, she blames the miscommunication upon myself. But there was no miscommunication. You can be as direct and as clear as you want, but there's always room to a woman for misinterpretation. So what does that mean? That means that potential relationships beyond the instant gratification are hostile because reality sets in, and the harshness of reality comes to the forefront, that if you're going to continue in a relationship, within a relationship, there are sacrifices to be made. And when it comes down to it, sex is free. Intimacy is not. Now I'm going to circle back to, pornography and art as a weapon, as a means of propaganda. Look how free and open our society is. We allow anyone and everyone to have sex with each other. You can even have sex with your animals, and there won't be permanent repercussions for it, other than public humiliation. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Whatever. and that is, to me, is what is embodied by the whole furry subculture, because it's intertwined with, or at least originated out of homosexual subculture. And that's what I remember. There's a correlation between freedom and homosexuality. There's a correlation there. But beyond that, when I was in jail, desiring the touch and the intimacy of a woman, because I'm being starved and tortured for standing up for whatever, right? Like it matters in this video. Was, the question came to my mind: was there pornography in the Soviet Union? And how was it produced? And does it still exist? You know, is there still pornography from the Soviet era of the USSR? That's a really interesting question to me, you know, and I have not, and I stopped writing there. I'm like, you know, holy shit, um, there had to have been, you know, even within that society, there had to have been pornography. There had to have been um, brothels of some sort, because what's the saying is that prostitution is the oldest profession. It's the oldest profession in the world. So I don't think that you know, I'm so burnt out. That doesn't mean that I don't think about this stuff. It means that, you know, I don't want to see people naked. And in fact, when I look at a woman online, I'm like, please don't have an OnlyFans. Just please don't have an OnlyFans. Please don't have a TikTok. Just please do something with your life other than just trying to be an influencer and using your body to make money in this fashion. Just don't. You know, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at this very moment. I'll um, reiterate that TikTok and OnlyFans are not sexual liberation. They're pure fucking evil. And I'll stand by that till the day I die.